Tout de suite, retrouvez en direct la réalisatrice Susanne Bier aux Rencontres 7ème Art Lausanne avec Flashback sur Séance Radio.
I will begin with just one question, because you are here in a film school. You were a student in one of the most famous film schools in Europe, the Danish Film School. Is it a good souvenir for you this time when you were at school, or is it really something painful for you today to come back in a film school? There is a lot of bad memories about this time of your life.
No, I thought it was a fantastic time. I mean, I thought more than anything, the possibility of getting to express oneself. I think I was always someone who wanted to express myself and wasn't quite sure what the media was, and actually going to film school and start making movies and start to understand the movie language was completely invigorating and fantastic and fun. I feel a little bit, I didn't actually leave the film school. I just started there and then it went on for years and years and years, and I'm still in film school.
Really? You have this feeling?
Yes, I do. I have this feeling that I'm still learning, and I'm also looking it up. I'm also trying to, I do want to be in a position where I'm slightly uncertain and where I feel I still got to learn a lot of stuff every time I do something. Otherwise it's not exciting.
And there's a lot of now famous filmmakers who just did this school, maybe in the same time as you. Did you keep some contact with the people who were in the same class as you during this period? You are still in touch with them?
Yes, you know, we were a very, very close group of friends, and we are still very close. Absolutely, yes.
And when you decided to do this film school in Denmark, you were raised in Great Britain, is it right?
No, I was raised in Copenhagen.
But you have the chance to go somewhere else. Why did you choose this school particularly? There is a reason, or it's just because you were Danish that you want to go there?
No, what happened was I actually started out studying architecture, and I did study architecture for about 3 years, and then I realized that I was never going to become an architect. I was way more interested in all the potential characters that were moving around between the walls I was supposed to build, and that came as a kind of quite a gradual thing. But then when I decided, I acted very fast upon it, and the film school had closed their entrance, but then they opened up because apparently they didn't have enough interesting people applying for a place. So within 2 weeks I applied and I got in, and I just never looked back. I think, you know, sometimes even if there is an intrinsic plan to what you do, things can happen a bit randomly and they're still right.
But you said that it is a perfect place to test a lot of things, to experiment a lot of way of making film. Do you think that there is a different way of being a filmmaker when you go through a school or when you learn by yourself? What was the difference as a filmmaker who went in a film school? What could you test in the film school that you was able to do outside it?
I mean, a lot of different things, but first of all, in the film school you are kind of protected against any commercial aspects of anything. So you can actually test horrendously on commercial ideas, but still, you know, figure out something or learn something from it. And I think for people who are not in film school, you know, if you kind of work within the industry, you are immediately sort of part of something which needs to work with an audience, and there are different criteria for it. I think there is a very important protection being at film school, and also, like, you know, you can do horrible things, and I've done some of my exercises where the teachers thought that they were the worst they'd ever seen, and that was very lucky doing that at film school as opposed to doing that in the real world. But you can also do them, and I've also done them in the real world, which is way more painful.
But you said that there is something that would protect you from the commercial aspect of the cinema. but it can be something dangerous too, to be just alone, autistic in a film school, trying to do only what you want without even thinking about what the audience want to see, for example. Is it something that it was really important for you as a student when you were at school to be really open to the outside, to think of the industry, or you try to protect from that?
Look, I think there is in its nature, movies are a mass media.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that. So in its nature, some way or the other, you need to communicate to an audience. Whether you decide to do something which you consciously, where you make a choice, and you know that it's a very marginal audience, or you decide you want to do something which has a huge big audience. But even getting to a point where you are conscious in making that decision is important, and that's one of the things that film schools help you with. Look, I don't think any kind of protectiveness, I mean any kind of overprotectiveness is particularly healthy. I mean, I don't think it with small children, I don't think it with grown-up children, but I do think being able to operate purely on an artistic agenda is healthy for a while. And it's important because otherwise you don't really get to try borderline things. And so I do think it's important. But I mean, even if you spend 3 years playing around, after the 3 years you need to be in the real world.
But your first choice, going in architecture, studying architecture, is really something really connected with industry. There is not a lot of space for imagination. Oh, yes, of course, for imagination or a lot of things, but it's really more concrete than making a film. And it's why I'm asking you about.
I actually don't think so. I actually think it's way more abstract. But
because there's a lot of connection between.
Well, I mean, you know, like movie making, architecture is a lot of things, and I don't think the point of the discussion is how to define architecture, but for sure, there are. Particularly when I was studying, there was a number of very theoretical approaches to what architecture was supposed to be. It was actually way more abstract than movie making. Movie making is fairly concrete. Movie making is having a camera, having a sound department, having something in front of the camera, and telling a story with it. Architecture is somehow more remote and less physical.
So just before you arrived, we were with a class. They are preparing the graduation film, and to talk about something really concrete. One of the students said, "Oh, I'm really afraid because I have to shoot my film in 2 weeks, but a lot of people give me advice, a lot of advices, and they are going in every direction. One say that, another one say another thing, and I don't know what to choose, what to do." Is it something that you improve by yourself, even now you are a confirmed filmmaker, you are well known, you did a lot of film? Is it for you still the same hesitation, fear before going on the set to hear everybody and to choose, to make the right choice, the right decision? And is it normal?
Every day when I wake up, when I'm shooting, every day, and I've done lots of it, every day I wake up and there's a part of me which it's a weird expression saying, but there's a part of me which are sort of pleasantly terrified. Mm-hmm. Because, how am I going to do this today's scene? And even if I know, because experience tells me I will do it, and I've done it before, and so it's not like I sleep pretty well, I function, but there is a part of me where I still have that anxiety. And I think part of getting experience is also recognizing the anxiety, and I think that anxiety in most cases are a useful creative tool, because that anxiety makes you question the choices. It makes you it keeps you alive artistically. I think in a way, probably the most dangerous thing is feeling completely relaxed and not be curious and not be anxious about what you're doing, because then you might just do whatever you've done before and it might become really boring and uninteresting.
Can you say that today you enjoy this anxiety in a way, Is it a pleasure to be so afraid of everything before getting on the set?
I mean, anxiety is never joyful, but I know what it is, and I know it's important, and I know it's part of the process. So it doesn't grow out of hand. But whoever that student was, I want to say my advice would be you have to listen to everything, but fundamentally you need to figure out your own destiny. You have to kind of know what you want. And then you can use all the advice, and then you can use all the creative input, because it isn't just being in film school that you get creative input. Being a director on set, you get creative input. You get creative input from the crew, from the cast, from a lot of people, and you need to navigate, because some of those ideas are brilliant, whilst others are really not. And you need to be able to navigate that landscape, so you use all the right ideas, but discard the other ones, without being, and still be polite about it.
And how you can know what kind of advice is really useful for you, and how you can choose the right one. Because when you are a young filmmaker, sometimes your producer says something really definitive about how to make a film, and when you are not sure of yourself, you don't know if you have to follow that or follow these things. There is a recipe or something that you can say to assure the fact that what you want to do, or is it really difficult? It's just experiments, and the fact that you make films after films, you know you better, and you know exactly how to react in every situation.
Look, I think you probably got to fuck up a few times before you figure what is right, because otherwise, you know, a honorful, artistic, real bad decision is better than no decision. So, you know, I think you know, it's interesting. You learn more from the kind of mess you make than you learn from the great stuff you do. And I think you do actually figure. It does take a little bit of time, but you do figure it out. And also, you get to know who you can trust and who you can't trust. Mm-hmm. I think it's really important finding collaborators who you can trust and who will be honest with you. And also, it's also inviting honesty is also I think, without being gender politically incorrect, I think traditionally in female relationship there is a kind of honesty. I think girlfriends tend to be relatively honest with each other, and I think when I look at female directors, there's a part of me that thinks that women are somehow brought up to invite more discussion than men are, which I think is healthy.
Okay. You think that? Okay. And do you think it's the same anxiety when you are working with a small crew and with a huge crew with a lot of technicians? Is it the same kind of anxiety for you? When you are working in the US, for example, or when you were at school, can you say that it's the same feeling?
Yeah, it's pretty much the same feeling. It is the same feeling because it's, at the end as a director, what you need to do every day, you need for the scene to come alive. And you need and that's all what you have to do. And everything else, like whether there's a big crew and whether there's a million of trailers, you have to kind of somehow not just ignore it and just you really need to look at what's important at all times.
The fact that the film costs a lot of money, it's put nothing more on your shoulder for you. It's the same kind of anxiety. Money is not really the problem for you. If you know that a lot of money is involved in the production, for example.
No, I don't think it's more or less anxiety ridden. I think it's, whoever is investing the money has probably more anxiety. But for the director, I think it's pretty much the same.
And you like that working with huge crew? Is it something that you like, or you prefer working with a more confidential way of making films?
I've been quite happy doing both. I don't, I'm someone who's very adamant about the story, or the actual the artistic project, and that's more important to me than whether it's big or small, or I think if you look at the very big films, there is a tendency for them to be more similar. But on the other hand, if you look at some of the small European films, I also at times find that they can be very pretentious. I don't necessarily think that for a director not to have any questions asked or to have ultimate respect, however bad the idea is not that healthy either. I think there are qualities within both systems.
The most important thing for you is the narration.
Yes.
Is the plot, the story.
Yeah, not just the plot, actually, just the whole artistic idea. The artistic idea is not necessarily the plot or the story. It can also be a certain actor doing something that he or she had never done before. There needs to be something profoundly intriguing.
And could you say that maybe it's something really cultural about your country? Because, in Switzerland, a lot of times people try to put Denmark as an example for us. If the Danish can do that, why you couldn't do that? You are less intelligent than them because they are so great in filmmaking, in series for television. We have quite the same number of people who are living in Denmark and in Switzerland, and sometimes there is this comparison. But maybe something really specific in Denmark is a relation that you have with narration, with dramatic play writer, for example, on this tradition of theater, of narration. Is it something is really specific for your country, do you think, or it's just an idea from our side? That maybe there is something, not in your gene, but in your history about theater.
But you know what, I want to say, if I was greedy and involved all of Scandinavia, I'd say you'd be right, because there are some of the greatest playwrights are from Scandinavia, but they are not particularly Danish.
So what's happened? It's in the water.
So we just adopt the Swedes and the Norwegians.
It's what you are eating. What's happened with this country? Why are you? There is so much filmmaker. Really
I want to say it's a couple of generations of filmmakers, right, actually, and things tend to come in waves. In general, artistic things tend to come in waves. So it might have been a wave of people working along the same line. I think there was also, what the dogma, the conceit of dogma, the whole thing of peeling away anything other than the actual story or the actual characters was extremely healthy, because it did force a few generations of filmmakers to just deal with the stories and the characters.
But there is also a strong connection between people working on the theater and in cinema in Denmark. Even in the school are not really far away, which is not the case there. Do you have, when you were at school, there is this strong connection with the theater school, for example? You knew actors who are playing and learning there, you have connection with them or not really? Because we discover a lot of new actors too with your generation of filmmakers.
Yes.
You grew up
we
together.
When I went to film school, and actually most of the directors Winterberg, he's after me, he's a year after me, I think.
Okay.
The film school was nowhere near the theater school, okay, and that's a relatively recent thing. If you look at England, the relationship between theater and film are much, much tighter. And that has actually made a certain kind of movies, which are pretty different from Danish. I think it is very much to do with being collaborative. Like, I think the Danish directors has a tendency to work well together. Some of them, when they don't direct, they might be writing for other directors. I think it's very much being collaborative, which is a big part of that puzzle. And then being at film school with some amazing teachers. We had great teachers, which I think you have here.
It's our fault. That's why Swiss film is so bad. It's because of us. I just think that. Maybe there is a first extract of one of films, and there is a question from Natasha. But let's see the film before. Sorry for the quality, which is not great. Natasha, where are you?
Hi.
Hey.
I have a question about your movies because I noticed you film movies that are very difficult, like family stories that are violent and that are hard to see sometimes. And I was just wondering where you get your inspiration and how do you have to direct your actors to play in such a scene like the one you just saw?
Okay, now you took a cut from probably the most sort of the harshest thing I've ever done. I mean that one is particularly black. I want to say, and I think that one became so black because I had a really difficult experience doing a relatively big American movie, and I was just so frustrated, and I was so I kind of thought I have to do everything I was not allowed to do, and it probably became a bit too dark, I think, for my own taste. I don't really think my other movies they do deal with with at times difficult subject matter, but I don't really think that they are dark. I think that they are actually mostly dealing with people who wants to be good, who wants to do the right thing, but for one of the reason or the other is incapable, and somehow everything becomes, or a lot of things go wrong, but coming from a place of goodwill. And I've kind of investigated that for a long, long time. And I don't think I've left that subject matter, but I think that right now I'm probably slightly intrigued by other things as well. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but because subject matter is difficult to talk about, because I think it happens a little bit. It happens a little bit along with other things in your life where your interest kind of develop and changes and things happen in your life, and then you want to do other stuff.
Yeah, but I was wondering about the inspiration. Is it when you read something that comes to you, or is it something that's inside of you, maybe? Or how do you come up with these family stories?
I often read things. I often read things, and then I don't necessarily use that story, but it kind of becomes inspiring. There might be just even a line in something I read, and that sort of unsets a desire to tell a certain story. I've done a number of scripts with Anders Thomas Jensen, and he and I have a weird place of meeting somewhere where we have a lot of discussions about moral, like what is the moral implication of doing this and this, and we can spend long time talking about that, and then we actually do the script quite fast, but we are sort of both fascinated by moral implications of stuff. That's been a lot of it, and I want to say even with my TV series, The Night Manager, that also has a very strong moral point of view, which is part of why I've always been fascinated by John le Carré, because all his characters are kind of morally flawed, but still wanting to do the right things, and I've always been really interested in that.
Could you just explain us how you are working with Anders Thomas Jensen? You are working in the same place concretely. You are spending maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks together writing in the same place, or you write one version, one draft, then you did another one. How you are working with him?
No, we do like to kind of, we've been kind of going away together sometimes, and so then we talk a lot, and then he writes. And
you always have the first idea.
No, I don't always. He might have the first idea. It doesn't matter who has the first idea. In general, it doesn't matter who's got the idea. The best one will win.
Okay.
And then at some point, he'll write 20 pages, and then I read them, and I go, yeah, but this doesn't work because this and this. And then he'll be really angry, and we will have a huge big fight, and he will order a ticket to go back, or it can be very dramatic and very like a
to fight with
like
him.
I'm never going to talk to you again and things
Okay.
like that. And then after about an hour or something, it's usually fine, and then we figure out what the story is going to be.
The fight is really a kind of engine.
But
it's
also kind of, it's sort of absurd. I don't know why we both get really there's always a point where we both get really agitated. But in general, he writes, and then I comment, and then I'll go and I'll act a scene for him in a really bad way, and he'll kind of want to die because it's so bad. And then he writes something which is sort of has the components but actually works.
So you know him well to be able to show everything to him and to test everything on him. There is no no embarrassment to explain your idea in front of him and to share it with him. And when you said that sometimes you just read something in a newspaper and it gives you the idea to make a film about it, how does it happen? You write that on a notebook, it's immediately becomes a screenplay, or you just have to wait, it's add something else to this first idea, and then it's like a mountain of ideas together and the film is just born from that? How it's working?
I don't really write anything down, basically.
Never.
No. I don't even have a script with me on set. I usually remember things, and I tend to think that if I can't remember I might forget. I mean, I forget all sorts of things, like I forget like doctor's appointment, things like that. But in terms of work, I've kind of trained myself to remember things and to remember, like, the reason why I don't have a script with me on set is I do know what the actors are going to say, and I do remember the lines. And I just feel like if I have to look down at stuff, it sucks out the life of it. But so I read something and then I probably speak about it or just think about it and then use it somehow. It can also be an image. It can also just be an image of. With this movie, it was the notion of the story is basically one couple loses a baby. And this other couple who are both addicts has this baby, and they are not taking care of it, and the policeman can't handle that. And the policeman comes and takes the baby. And it's this whole feeling, which I think we all the time have felt, that sort of thing of why, things are sometimes seem so unfair. Like, why this couple who's been trying to have a kid can't have a kid, and this other couple are abusing that, that whole thing. And it's sort of addressing that feeling of overpowering feeling of unfairness and acting upon it, which obviously you can't. But we thought it was interesting.
So all the story began from this feeling.
Yeah.
You want to show that.
Yeah, or I want to address that, or yeah.
But when you said that you don't have the screenplay with you on the set, you are never afraid to lose something that you write about dialogues or something like that. Is it really important for you that the actors are really precise with everything you wrote? Or
no.
It's okay for you, it's in moving on the set?
It's always moving. But I mean, what I do is, firstly, I'm not alone on set. So the continuity person has a script. It's not like there's no scripts on set.
Course.
It's just me personally. But so the way I work is every morning I meet with the actors and I rehearse the scenes of the day, and I do that quite.
You do that alone or with the crew? With
DP, continuity, sometimes sound, sometimes somebody from props. I mean, a minor part, like key members of the crew.
Mm-hmm.
And we do play around, and we might remove all the dialogue or replace the dialogue, or like we do, and we kind of sort of kick the scenes into a shape where we feel that they are real. And then we show it to the crew. Then the crew comes in and we show it to the crew.
So sometimes you can add some improvisation.
Yeah, lots of times.
And it's not a problem with a huge crew to do that, to be sure that there is not a question of organization or time, I don't know what.
You have to know how to do it. You have to kind of figure out how to do it within the framework of what is being shot. I mean, you can't destroy whatever is planned, because that's going to have repercussions of other sorts. But there are ways of using the system so that it works for you. I think part of being a director is actually using that setup, figuring out how to turn everything into part of your instrument, part of your tools to create what you want to create. And there are ways of doing that.
And when you are changing important scene, for example, do you ask the authorization to your scriptwriter, or absolutely not? You call him, you said, okay, we changed something this morning. Is it a problem for the continuity, for something else in the screenplay? Or you really said, okay, the screenplay is now it's ended, it's my job, I can change everything I want?
I mean, when you do big movies, there are producers on set who like, if you change something, I will go and tell them, I'm going to do this and this instead of this and this. And I want to say that I actually think it's kind of healthy, because what it does, I do it, but what it does is it does kind of force me to articulate why I think it's a good idea.
But you never ask the script writer.
You know, Anders Thomas Jensen have been known to, the last 5 times he's been visiting set, I've been shooting a scene which was not in the script, and he's been kind of, of course,
set for that.
yeah, he's very easy about it. I think for some screenwriters it can be a problem. I think you'd have to, you have to figure a way of doing what you need to do artistically without behaving in a hurtful manner, and being respectful. I mean, screenwriters are doing, if the script is good, he or she has done a great job, and you rather want to engage them and then be part of that discussion than alienate them.
But when you said that you like, or you have to ask questions to the producer, or ask authorization to do what you want?
You don't ask authorization, you inform them. But you inform them in a way which is respectful and articulate.
But you're really a respectful director. You won a lot of awards everywhere.
You don't shout at people. Yeah, I am. I don't really think that
people dare to say no to you still now, or sometimes they are too impressed, because when you are a young filmmaker,
I think that would be an interesting situation.
To say no to you.
Yes.
Are you waiting for that? Because sometimes
no, I think that would be hugely problematic.
Really?
Yes.
So
because here's the thing. The director is responsible on set. That's the way it is, and so you use your responsibility. You use that. You do that in a way where you, in the end, it's a question of creating the best possible movie. And I believe firmly that you do that better by having a good creative conversation on set, other than a sort of a antagonistic conversation. But in the end, the director needs to make those decisions.
But sometimes it can be really helpful when somebody say no to you, because it's give you the opportunity to do something else, or to try something else, to go further in your idea.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say yes. People can say, like, I can come and say, can we shoot for 3 hours more? And they tell me we can't because of a number of reasons. And I then have to figure out whether I can make it within a day, or we have to get another day to do whatever. So those kind of things you can have say no. I do think that rules and I do think that agreements are healthy. I don't think having a discussion where somebody says no to a director on set is particularly healthy.
On the set, but before the set, when you are talking about the production or the screenplay or the actor you want to work with.
Are we talking about students, or are we talking about, what are we talking about now?
No. because now they are in this problematic now. We say a lot no to them.
Yes.
Because it's our job as a producer
Yes.
to say, we don't agree with that, you have to be more precise, please explain more your idea or something like that.
Yes.
It's why I'm asking you that, because for them it's really sometimes painful with always say no, 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 and you have to trust me as a filmmaker. And I have the feelings that nobody trusts me, but saying no to a student or to a director can be really helpful for him or her. I just want to know that. But
Well, here's the thing. Of course, people say no to you. Like you have a great project, and nobody wants to pay for it. And you kind of go, "But I understand that it's a great project. Why does nobody want to pay for it?" And apparently, you're not convincing enough, or the project is too risky, or it's too expensive for what it is in terms of the risk. So and all of that is, I mean, all of those is eventually helpful. But that's a different matter than somebody on set saying no.
Let's see. Do you have a question now, or we see another part of one student film? So we watch another part of one of your film, and there is another question.
Pigerne, de blev glade for Jannik, eller så?
Ja.
Han sagde, at han sover nogle gange.
Ja, et par gange.
Har han sovet her?
Nej, selvfølgelig har han ikke det.
Det kan godt være, at jeg har fundet sammen. Jeg troede, jeg var død.
Nej, det kunne ikke.
Vi ser søde sammen.
Ej, hold nu op.
Har du været sammen med ham?
Ja, hold nu op.
Du har været sammen med ham?
Men ja, der var ikke noget. Vi gav hinanden et kys. Jeg er bare forvirret.
Hvad mere?
Så ikke mere. Slem. Slem! Slem! Hvad fanden er det fejl med dig? Hvor kommer han til?
Sindssygt! Alle sammen! Sindssygt!
About directing actors, how you prepare them for a scene, if you have a method or something you do on every movie, or if it's different for every situation or different actors.
I mean, the rehearsals every morning are a big part of my work with them. I'm also insanely obsessed about their costumes and their looks in general. I'm more obsessive with those things than I am actually with talking psychology. I feel a little bit talking psychology with actors is a little bit like sex. Like you know, you can talk about it to a certain point, but in the end, it sometimes the words comes in the way. But actually talking about the way they look, is he a great driver when he drives a car? All those kind of things, those physical, or everything which is physical, everything which is sort of tangible in terms of actors, I'm completely obsessed with and very, very detailed with. And I can spend an hour in costumes in the morning and changing a pair of shoes or something if I don't think it's right somehow. I know that's not necessarily very helpful because it's not a method, but what could be helpful is, I don't think you should. I think it's a mistake to focus too much on fueling the actors with their inner thoughts, because if they're good actors, they're very good at it themselves, and they need to do it in a way. So you need to give them a space where they can get to that point.
And if you work with bad actors or non-actors, professional?
Look, I work with lots of kids, for example. And kids are definitely not bad actors, but they're not necessarily experienced actors. And it's pretty much the same thing. It's also getting them to a place where they do something that they feel are real. And then you play like you, and I think with both with grown up and with kids, you do want to play a little bit. You do want to kind of, hey, why don't we give you this in the hand while you tell this woman that you're leaving her? Like do something which is not necessarily irrational or which isn't part of the script, but something which, because we all do irrational things. Like if you look around in the room, or if you look at me, I'll be doing all sorts of weird things, and many people do that. And I think it's also making those things come alive.
Is it something that you find the morning when you are making the rehearsal, what they are doing with bottle of everything? You find something on the set to do it with them, or you let them play and try to use what they are doing by themselves to put that in your film, or it's really
It's a combination. It's a combination. I mean, I might do it in the morning, but I also might do it after the third take, and then I'll go back and do the whole thing over again. I mean, also I might only do it when I've gotten to the close-up, and then I'll go back and I'll do the mask again if it was better.
And even the way you are filming them, because your camera is always in movement, generally in your film, it's really following what the actors are doing, which is really great because there is a huge interaction between them and you as a spectator. But is it something that you try to connect with what they are doing in the morning? When you arrive on the set, you don't know exactly how you want to film them, you watch them, and after that you decide it with your DOP? Yes,
absolutely, yeah. And I also do that with the American films, like with the big crew. I do exactly the same thing. I kind of...
And was it a surprise for them?
No, but I think, there are kind of two schools. This is one school, and then there are the other school of directors who kind of make the very meticulous camera movement and then put the actors into them. I find that the acting is better if you start there. And the camera becomes a result of what the acting is like. Then you can, then of course there's like a light source and you can move them around, or you can, once you've gotten to that point where it's for real what they're doing, you can then somehow make it more beautiful or more aesthetic or whatever you want to do, because that's relatively easy then.
And are you doing some rehearsal 2 months before or 3 months before with the actor in a place which is not the set, working with them, or not really?
I don't really feel it does anything. you know, I like having read-throughs. I like having actors read the script, so I know what it's like, and I kind of understand whether there are some weak spots in the script or there are some scenes which needs something else. But I always found rehearsals long in advance are just deceiving.
Why deceiving?
Because you think you know what you're doing, and then once you actually start filming, you'll do something else, and it's more confusing. And also it takes away a little bit, there is a kind of innocence to everyday scenes if you haven't kind of massaged them too much. And I think it removes the innocence, but it doesn't really add anything. That's the way it is for me.
Yes.
In the film that you showed, brothers, maybe can you talk about your relationship between like universal story and like actual facts or actuality, political circumstance? If you search like a universal story that talks to like something deep in us all, or if you also want to talk about today.
I mean, that one was the first movie that actually came out about the Afghan war, and it came out before any of the American movies because it's easier to finance out of Denmark. It came out before any American movie had done anything with Afghan. So it did have a certain concrete, acute political sort of news value. But I in general, I am more, I guess, but in its core it's an archaic story. In its core it's a story about two brothers in a way falling in love with the same woman and also loving each other and trying to figure that out. And one of them happens to be a soldier who was lost in the war and came back. So I guess in its core, I'm fundamentally interested in archaic stories. I'm fundamentally interested in universal stories, but I do think at times it's interesting setting them in a concrete reality, which is very, you know, at that point it was very poisonous.
Which books did influence you or still influence you?
Sorry, which books?
Which books? Yes, books.
Books.
I didn't hear the question.
Which books influence you? What kind of literature? Do you have an author or people who influence
and
you?
Still influence you.
Ooh,
So
lots
we're
of
not talking
lots of
knowledge, just the influence.
lots of writers.
You talk about John le Carré, for example.
I love John le Carré. I love spy stories. I love Hemingway. I've always loved Hemingway. I love a lot of the I love lots of playwrights. Chekhov, Ibsen. I think in a way, you know, Ibsen has probably been a big, not really conscious, but a kind of subconscious inspiration for both Anders Thomas and myself. I watch lots of movies. I always have. I'm kind of all absorbent. I read news all the time. I read all the time. I watch all sorts of weird stuff. I kind of get it in periods. I have a period where I watch like any music video ever made, and then I don't do it for a year. So I can't say it's not particularly consistent. I do tend to come back to Chekhov and Ibsen a lot, though.
Ici.
Yeah, talking about again the role of the women in movie and TV businesses. So can you reflect about the situation now, and if Hollywood lost the occasion develop new stories with female characters. I think about, for example, Lady Bird by Greta Gerwig that a rise in a competition in the Oscar but lost, for example. So can you reflect about the situation now about women behind the camera, and also about the possibility for the company to give more stories for women and on women?
I mean, here's the sad news. In a year where this discussion had been so out there are still less movie directed by women than the year before. So, and I think if you know, I think in terms of I think the studios and even maybe the televisions, you know, the big, whoever orders big project somehow tend to be more comfortable with male directors, with male project. I don't think they're right. I think that given that we are more than half of the population of the world, it would be healthy if the media had a ratio which was more like reality. I mean, if I look at this crowd, how many women what's the ratio in this school?
Generally, we try to be in cinema half-half. It's really difficult in directing because there is more application from men than women.
Yeah.
But when we arrive, there is only men. And then 15 years after that, we try to make a lot of things to improve the fact that we need to have some women, because it's really important, even in a class, to have 2 points of view, even more than that, of course, but not to be between ourselves, to be more open to that. Now, in cinema, in the school, there are more women than men, because there is a lot of women in photography, graphism. In cinema, it's a little bit different, to be honest, but you try to be balanced, which is difficult.
I mean, the thing is, I feel that, you know, there is a number of young women wanting to do films, and then I think, unfortunately, a number of women still feel at some point they need to make a choice between having children or having a career which is not particularly inviting for kids. Mm-hmm. And I know it's a very primitive observation, but I actually think that there's a lot of truth to that still. And all I can say is I've got two now grown-up kids, and I've always worked and I've always had kids more or less from my Finnish film school, and I can highly recommend it. It's not easy. No, it's not easy, but it makes your work better, and it gives you a full life and an interesting way of working. It's, you know, you need to navigate it. I spent 15 years spending all my money on childcare. Even if we have public childcare in Denmark, it still never works with times. It still never works, you know, and you have to be on set at 6 o'clock, and so you have to kind of. So I spend, you know, it's a choice, but I think it's the right choice. Yeah.
Do you consider like VR as a new medium for making films or storytelling? What do you think about this?
Do I consider VR the new medium for making films?
No. Do you consider like making a movie of VR? What do you think about VR as a medium to tell a story?
I think it's really fascinating. I think, you know, as a filmmaker, there's also part of me which wants for people to see whatever I do together. There is a certain social implication of watching whatever I've done, and there is a kind of exchange. VR is not particularly sociable. I find it fascinating and interesting, but I'm not sure that. I mean, I don't have any project that I'm kind of jumping at to do it.
It's not something which interests you for the moment as a filmmaker?
No, I won't say it doesn't interest me. It does definitely interest me, but I think I probably won't do it within the next couple of years.
Yes?
You talked about keeping the innocence, about not rehearsing too much with the actors. find interesting. Do you think also when you organize the shooting of a film, you like prefer to shoot the difficult scenes at the beginning, or you prefer to shoot in chronological order? Do you think this has an affection as well on innocence?
It's funny, that question, because that's a really I don't really like shooting chronological. I think there is a randomness in the planning of a film, which I always find fascinating, because sometimes you do things that you don't know you're doing because you did a late scene very early in the shooting process, and it just became unexpected. That is, I mean, I think in movie making one has to embrace the unexpectedness. I do like to start with something which is a little bit difficult. I wouldn't want to start with the most difficult scene, because I think that everybody needs to be comfortable, and that takes a little time. But I don't want to start with something of no consequence. I hate that. I mean, if I'm starting with a scene where people just go in and out of a door, it's terrifying. I do want to start with a proper, meaty scene.
Just another question related to your mimi. You said a lot of things, but I want to know a little bit more. How did you find your own way in this world of make filmers, which I mean is a man world? How it was for you, your experience? It was easy, difficult, in a professional way, like a woman.
I think a little bit like being on a set with 250 and lots of trailers. I think I treated it a little bit the same way, that I'm just not going to see what I don't want to see. So I'm not going to see if this guy is really patronizing, really arrogant, treat me like I've got no brain because I'm a woman. I'm just going to ignore it. And I'm not going to give him the pleasure of being upset, because at times I kind of thought, maybe that's what they want. Maybe they want you to kind of, and so I think it's anything to do with movie making is having your goal and go for it. Like, do not be distracted by somebody who is an idiot. Do not be distracted by something which apparently seems overwhelming. Just go for that particular thing that you want to do with that movie. And there's no doubt, particularly in America, there's no doubt, and even like the last 5 years, there's no doubt that people have talked to me in a way that they would never talk to a man. And I've kind of gone, woo. I mean, do you think because I'm not a man that I'm more silly? Do you really think so? Or are we going to play this game? And I might sound tougher than I am, but I actually do think that the only way to deal with it is to kind of not let it in a deep way really impact you. You know, you do get upset, and particularly, I want to say particularly for all the young women here, it's a difficult thing, because it kind of it feeds into a natural insecurity. Like, there is a part of you where you kind of go, hey, are they right? Or and it's about very, very quickly regaining that balance and go, no, they're not right. He's just being an arrogant prick, and I'm not going to let him do that to me. So all young women, if anybody talks horrible to you, you just ignore it. Do not let it get to you. You can tell him off, but don't let it come inside.
But you are but you write a lot and you direct a lot of male character, and
yes.
Generally your film is really based on main story or main experience. And is it something that maybe when you were in Hollywood, do they propose you a lot of screenplay with female character because you are a female director? Or could you feel that there is a difference between what they bring you, what kind of screenplay they bring you, and say maybe it can interest you, and it's always a woman's story because you are a woman? or maybe you are not exactly like this other female director. There is no one style of director, of course, but it's really something based on male experience on your film. And it's maybe why they like your film, because they can understand it, because it's talk about them in a way. People will decide it, men will decide it, who can have money to make a film or another.
I think there's more. I mean, I do out of Hollywood. I do get. I might possibly get more female-driven scripts, but like Night Manager was definitely not female-driven. I don't really mind whether it's men or women. I mean, if the character is interesting, it's an interesting character. But of course, I think if you, in general, women directors are mostly being sent female material in general, for sure. Yeah.
There is a last question. Oui, Paul.
You said something about read through the script instead of rehearsal. That you would like to do that, and I'm asking, how do you do a read through with a scene that has no dialogue, or just some little indications that you can see the actors do their thing?
Well, it's tricky. It's tricky because you do read the stage directions, and it's always kind of a little bit weird and dull. And you know, if you have a script which is purely visual, I'm not sure read-through is the best tool for you. You know, read-throughs are generally better for dialogue-driven scripts. I mean, what you do with something which is purely visual, you probably have to do, if not storyboard, then do mood boards. You have to do a visual. You then have to do some kind of visual communication, which is going to convey what it is you want to do, because purely writing, the camera does this and we see this, at this stage is probably not gonna, unless you is probably not gonna let you do what you really want to do. I think you need to find other tools to help you.
But I mean, a scene without a dialogue does not mean that there is only visual. It can be a scene on a tripod without great visual, I don't know, impact, but the actors has to do something. So, is this the kind of thing that you only see see the day of the rehearsal, like you explained?
No, I mean, like for example, action scenes are also examples of what you say. And you read those, and they do seem dull, but he opens the safe, and the key falls down, and the alarm goes off. There's no dialogue, but there's a lot of things going on. And you kind of know it's probably going to be quite fun. It depends very much on what it is. You know, the quiet beat between two people where nothing is said is difficult to convey other than in the actual film.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe a last question. You know that there is a special focus on this Rencontres 7ème art about the new Hollywood. How are you connected to this part of the American film history, for example? Is it something important for you? It's a lot of inspiration for you, or you're really far away from this way of writing and directing actors?
No, that has been the biggest. That has been the biggest inspiration for me of it all. Like, for sure, that everything I looked at was that period where Hollywood went from being somehow a creature of imagination to a creature of real. And that was that period, like any of those, Dog Day Afternoon, any of those movies. I believe you saw Apocalypse Now, Deer Hunter. Mm-hmm. Deer Hunter is one of my personal favorites, all-time favorites. Yes, they've been hugely influential.
Okay. And maybe a last thing. Tomorrow, Thomas Vinterberg will be there. Tell us something secret about him, or really embarrassing about him, or a question that they can ask him. But really embarrassing.
Embarrassing?
Yeah, please. Help me a little bit.
when he was in film school, he had. I don't think he knows. He had like a whole group of girls that were in love with him.
Okay.
I don't think he knows about.
Did he know that?
What?
Okay.
I don't think he knows about
Okay.
it. But you can't tell him that I told you.
Sorry?
You can't tell him that I told you.
Okay, no, sure.
Another question.
Yeah.
Were you one of those girls?
No.
Definitely not.
I was too old for him. So.
Okay. Thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
generosity.
Bonjour, c'est Vincent Pérez. N'hésitez pas à suivre les rencontres 7ème art.